Unveiling Sinister Noises, 7 Spine-Chilling Walk Alone at Night Encounters Exposed. It should be just a simple walk home, but Sarah never felt more trapped. The night's air chilled her skin, a frigid reminder that darkness held secrets. She heard it once again, the whispers. Lurking just beyond the dim glow of streetlights, they crawled into her ears, whispering her deepest insecurities, echoing the doubts that haunted her mind. Heart pounding, she forced herself to breathe, each step weighted with fear. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, their shapes blending with the skeletal remains of once bright homes turned hollow shells. Just keep walking, she told herself, but the voices grew bolder. They taunted her. You're all alone, no one's coming to save you. She shivered, a chill deeper than the night air pooling in her chest. The sound of insects faded, replaced by a low rustle, something unnatural stirring in the bushes. Desperation clawed at her throat, the tension rising like a coiled spring. She avoided the porch light of Mrs. Jenkins, famed for her loud and unsolicited advice. But even that light felt tainted now. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The intensity coiling inside her felt like a live wire as she rounded the corner where the streetlights gave way to shadows. The whispers swept around her, amalgamating with the rustle of leaves, igniting spine-chilling perceptions. The soft crunch of her footsteps grew louder, and with it, came the chilling realization she was not alone. The air crackled with threat, vibrating through her bones. A dog barked far in the distance, but it did little more than splash cold water on her nerves. Silence returned, pressing in, thick as fog. Now, panic surged through her veins. She recalled Jake hadn't come home yet. Frantic, she sprinted to the police station in the center of town. It should have been a safe haven, but standing behind the counter was Officer Martinez, his eyes darting as she frantically relayed her son's absence. The concern on his face seemed forced, and for a fleeting moment, she caught something unreadable in his gaze, a flicker of fear, perhaps? The realization chilled her. As time stretched and the night grew darker, the whispers morphed into familiar voices, her neighbors, their words twisted into chilling fragments of accusations. Each name carved into her sanity, and the sense that the very community that was supposed to protect her had turned sinister gripped her heart. The choice bore down like an iron weight: uncover the truth hiding behind their benign smiles or surrender to the shadows encroaching on her life. As dawn painted the horizon with tentative light, Sarah stood between the stark reality of her world and the shadows where trust had once resided. Rattled and drenched in cold sweat, she turned as a figure emerged from the twilight, a specter born from her nightmares. Twisting dread froze her in place. Who could she trust anymore? The question slashed through her mind as she pushed forward, desperate to confront the darkness that threatened to consume her whole. The figure stepped into the weak morning light, and Sarah's heart raced. It was a man. Tall, gaunt, with eyes that pierced right through her, blending with the shroud of the pre-dawn haze. He wore a tattered jacket, frayed edges catching the slight breeze, making him look as though he belonged more to the night than to the emerging day. Sarah, his voice slithered around her name, echoing between the silence of the street. It was both familiar and alien, causing a momentary paralysis that rooted her to the spot. She struggled to remember. Had she seen him before? Who are you? She demanded, shaking off the dread that clung to her better than any coat. I know what you're looking for, he replied, stepping closer. The air thickened as his breath appeared visible in the chill. Your son. And the voices. Something in his stare and the way he spoke sent chills cascading down her spine. You need to leave, now. Leave? Leave to where? My son is missing, I'm not going anywhere until I find him." The ferocity in her voice surprised even her. Sarah felt a wave of determination wash over her, ignited by desperation. She scanned the road behind her, half expecting Jake to appear from the dim shadows. But the street remained eerily still. An unsettling grin twisted the stranger's lips. "The community won't help you. They've all changed, just like you. Something is lurking in their hearts, and in yours too." She recoiled. "What do you mean? What has happened to them? They are not who you think they are. And you're not who you think you are anymore either," he said, with a calmness that felt like an icy grip around her throat. The rustling in the bushes intensified, branches cracking ominously. She could almost feel the whispers creeping closer. The sound of secrets shared amongst shadows. Panic lit up her heart like a fuse burning to its end. "What do you know?" She pressed, edging away from him, ready to bolt if necessary. She needed answers. "Where's my son?" With a sudden intensity, the man lunged forward, grabbing her wrist. "Listen. There are layers to your world, Sarah. You think you can fight it. You can't. Not without knowing the dark truth." Sarah's breath quickened as her instincts screamed at her to flee, yet she couldn't break free from his grip. "You are in danger. They will come for you unless you understand." "Enough!" she shouted, finally yanking her arm away. She stepped back, defiance sparking within her. "Tell me where Jake is." But before he could respond, the shadows behind him shifted. Figures emerged, their faces shrouded in darkness. Her pulse raced, and she stumbled back further. Who were they? Were they friends or foes? Sarah, the voices from the dark called her name, sweet yet sinister. In that moment, Sarah felt trapped again, surrounded by shadows woven from desires, doubts, and terrifying truths. She turned on her heel to run but hesitated once more, staring at the man, the stranger whose eyes reflected something far beyond fear. "What are you afraid of, Sarah?" he called out after her, the mocking in his tone clinging to her like thorns. To the left, the alley beckoned, a narrow escape. To the right, her only route home swallowed by creeping darkness. Each choice hinted at danger, compelling her to choose between the familiar whispers or the uncertain stranger. Before she could act, a piercing scream shattered the air, slicing through the haze of uncertainty. The panic surged anew within her as she dashed toward the source, desperation fueling her limbs. As she raced into the darkened alleyways, the shadows intertwined, and the sinister truth began to unravel before her very eyes. But could she bear to see? In the distance, the scream transformed into something far worse, echoing her very worst fears, as something wicked began to take form on her path. What awaited her in the shadows? And would she be able to brave the truth, or would she let the darkness consume her whole? The alley swallowed her in darkness, the shadows clinging tighter as Sarah hurried forward. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the world. Fear was a living thing, slithering through her veins. The screams from beyond curled around her like smoke, twisting into shapes that reminded her too much of her own panic. "Jake!" she called, her voice a desperate gasp against the brick walls. Silence enveloped her, thick and suffocating, punctuated only by the scuttling of debris. She pressed on, the alley narrowing, like the jaws of a great beast closing around her. The figures from behind had vanished, but their absence only deepened her dread. Where had they gone? Was this some kind of trap? She fought against the swell of terror, focusing on her breathing, trying to keep the urge to run at bay. And then she heard it again, a low murmur, a child's voice, sweet yet edged with an unearthly chill. "Mommy!" It was unmistakably Jake, yet the echo had a warped quality, as if it didn't belong to the world she knew. It clawed at her heart. "Jake!" she shouted again, straining to attach herself to that voice. It wrapped around her like a promise, pulling her deeper into the shadows. She approached the end of the alley, where an old streetlight flickered uncertainly, casting grotesque shapes that danced across the pavement. She hesitated, heart hammering fiercely. The light was weak, but it offered the barest semblance of safety. She stepped into its glow, taking a moment to scan her surroundings. The world felt wrong, smeared with an unsettling layer of unease. Then, she noticed something glinting in a pile of leaves near the sidewalk. A small shoe. Stained. Familiar. Her stomach twisted, and her breath caught. It was a child's shoe, Jake's. Panic rose like bile in her throat. No. No, no, no. She cried, rushing over, grasping the shoe as if it could yank her son from the clutches of whatever dark force had taken him. She clutched it tight, her fingers trembling around the tiny object. In the distance, she heard laughter, tenuous, echoing, yet hauntingly sweet. It echoed against the walls of the alley, a mocking tune that made her skin crawl. Had the figures returned? Or was this an illusion crafted from her fear? She turned to look, straining into the darkness beyond the light. Sarah, the voice was back, the stranger's whisper, curling around her thoughts like a snake. You shouldn't be here. She felt a shudder run down her spine. What do you know? She hissed, adrenaline surging as anger fought her fear. Tell me where Jake is. But in response, the shadows thickened, whispering her name, weaving illusions that threatened to pull her under. He's closer than you think. Sarah's breath quickened, the world slipping from her grasp. The darkness, once just a backdrop, felt alive now, closing in and pressing against her with unseen hands. Suddenly, a figure stepped out of the perimeter of light, the man, his features sharper than before, his eyes blazing in the dimness. You must follow me, he urged, extending a hand as if to save her from the overwhelming darkness. Why should I trust you? She spat, glancing back to the shadows, a swell of voices tugging at her like a sinister tide. You don't have a choice, he replied. If you want your son back, you'll have to confront what has been hidden. The laughter ceased, replaced by a suffocating silence. What secrets lurked in the corners of this maze? Was her fate tied to that of the community he warned her about? In the depths of her mind, the truth felt teasingly close, but fear gnawed at her resolve. Time is running out, he urged again, his voice low, cutting through her hesitation. As uncertainty twisted inside her, Sarah felt the ground shift. Would she take his hand and plunge deeper into whatever horror awaited her? Or would she flee into the darkness, relinquishing her chance to find Jake? The decision loomed ahead, a fork in a road fraught with peril. How could she trust a man from the shadows, when all that tied her was desperation, and just as she opened her mouth to reply, the ground trembled beneath her feet, sending a crack through the pavement that echoed outwards, carrying with it a whisper of unfathomable dread. What could possibly come next? And would she have the strength to face it? The tremor shook Sarah to her core. The ground cracked with an ominous groan, the sound reverberating through the alley like a warning bell. The figure before her remained still, waiting, as if the trembling earth was part of a cruel game. She wanted to scream, to run, but fear held her tightly like a vice. Come, the man beckoned, his voice urgent. His hand remained outstretched, but Sarah felt the shadows snaking around her legs, pulling her back. The echoes of laughter returned, louder now, swirling in a sickening dance that echoed through the narrow space. Stop! She yelled, digging her heels into the pavement. What are you? Who are you? His eyes burned with an intensity that pierced through the shroud of darkness. I'm your only chance, he replied, as the laughter morphed into something darker and more anguished. You must confront him, or there will be no way out. With each second, an invisible weight pressed down on her, the very air seeming thick with dread. She clutched Jake's shoe tighter, the fabric damp against her palm, as if absorbing her fear. Mommy, the voice called again, closer this time, layered with a desperation that made her stomach turn. Was that really Jake? Was he in danger? Or was it an echo, a sickly plaything in the hands of whatever lurked beyond? Choose. The man shouted, impatience sharp in his tone. Your boy is close, but you must act now. She watched as his fingers gestured towards the shadows, and for a fleeting moment, she saw movement shapes writhing just out of reach. They flickered like dying embers, embodied in torment, and among them, she sensed Jake's presence. The thought brought an exhilarating jolt, but it was quickly drowned out by waves of fear. A grunt pulled her attention. The shadows seemed to pulsate, growing bolder, twisting into figures of vibrant malice. What were they? Creatures born of her nightmares? Take my hand, he urged again, his voice dipping low, almost soothing. I will guide you. But you must face the truth. Do you want your son back? Her heart surged with rage and despair. You're lying. The shadows rippled like a creature awakening. She felt their breath on her back, a chill that stole her warmth. You're playing with me. Am I? His voice dropped into a whisper, and in that moment, she felt the world tilt. She was standing on the knife's edge, and behind her, the shadows beckoned with insatiable hunger. They whispered things that clawed at her sanity, whispers of secrets and sins long buried. In defiance, she raised the shoe high, trembling but resolute. Jake! She screamed into the consuming dark, I'm here. I will find you. The chuckles that followed were cruel, like a chorus of lost souls manifesting her worst fears. Suddenly, the ground beneath her gave way, a gaping maw opened, a chasm of endless black threatening to swallow her whole. Before she could react, she was falling, plummeting into the darkness, and the last thing she saw before the void closed around her was the man's hand still outstretched, his expression unreadable. She landed on something soft yet cold, a surreal sensation that turned her stomach. A breath escaped her lips, and horror clamped down. Welcome, a voice echoed in the abyss, the words ringing clear, oily and slick. We've been waiting for you. Was this the end? Or just the beginning? As Sarah struggled to rise, the chilling realization sank in. What if the shadows had not only taken Jake but twisted him into something unrecognizable? Somewhere in the inky blackness, the laughter returned, sweet, mocking, and full of promises laced with torment. Would she find her son, or would she become part of the shadows herself? The echoes of her own heartbeat drowned out the laughter, fueling urgency within her. Desperation clawed at her, and in the back of her psyche, she could feel Jake's presence drawing near, pressing her to act, but at what cost? The darkness weighed heavily, swallowing Sarah whole, each second stretching into eternity. Ignoring the chill creeping up her spine, she forced herself to her feet. The cold beneath her felt like flesh, pulsating, breathing. Her heart raced, pounding in her chest, a frantic drum echoing the chaos around her. With each careful step, the laughter receded just enough to allow her thoughts to shatter through. Jake! She screamed again, terror lacing her voice, merging with the thick shadows that loomed like monsters waiting at the edge of her vision. Jake, where are you? A faint sound fluttered through the oppressive silence. A whimper? Yes, it definitely was. Hope ignited in her chest, sharp and bright against the dark. She moved toward the sound, instincts overriding fear. Jake! She called out, straining to hear through the resounding quiet. The shadows shifted, swirling in front of her as if alive, echoing her panic. They murmured, snatches of stolen conversations flitting past her ears, weaving a web of confusion. Memories? Secrets? She couldn't tell, just shards of voices taunting her. Mommy, a thread of familiarity laced the next whisper. It was him. Hold on, Jake. I'm coming. She stumbled forward, feet sinking into the rubbery ground as if it wanted to clutch her like a child clings to a parent. Don't. The warning dripped from the shadows, a low growl reverberating through the air. Turn back. What do you want? She shot back, defiance coursing through her. You can't have him. The ground rumbled in response, and she felt it tremor beneath her again, a cruel reminder that she wasn't alone in this nightmare. This is where the lost go, Sarah. The man's voice echoed, rich with mockery. Her breath quickened, the realization struck her this place was made of all the souls unwound by darkness, torn from loved ones. Was it real? Or just a cruel trick of ancient torment? Suddenly, the air shifted, a tangible pressure fear, yes, but belong. Something lurked behind her, a weight of dread. Sarah flinched, spinning to confront whatever stalked her. The shadows breathed more rapidly. They folded, bent, misshaping into the semblance of figures. Jake? She questioned, voice nearly lost in the consuming void. A flicker of light ignited far ahead, slightly out of reach. There it was again, pulsing rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Whatever it was, it pulled her forward, her resolve solidifying. As she moved closer, the light expanded, morphing into a figure, an outline of someone small. The laughter paused, yanked taut with anticipation. She squinted, desperate to see the outline looked too familiar. Mommy? It was him. Jake! Sarah gasped, the sheer weight of relief almost bringing her to her knees. Yet, a sudden wave of unease washed over her. What if it wasn't really him? As Jake stepped out from the light, his eyes bore a hollow stare, and all warmth fled from the scene. They want to let you take me. No. Panic surged, and she dove toward him, a protective instinct sparking within. But as she reached out, shadows lunged forward, twisting and curling like serpents ready to strike. Why are you with them? She shouted, but the truth hit harder than a punch. You're not my Jake. Mommy, help me. The figure's voice trembled. But his lips curved into a faint, sinister smirk, a light deepening the abyss. The temperature dropped, the shadows sharpened, and Sarah felt the crushing weight of realization. Jake! She called, her heart fractured, the shadows coiled around her, tightening their grasp as they pulled her back, and for the first time, she realized she was about to lose everything. As she fought against the darkness, a sudden crack echoed above her, the surface splintered. A beam of moonlight broke through, illuminating the twisted shadows that hissed like snakes. The man's laughter surged, unmistakably triumphant. Choose, Sarah. He howled, madness tinged in his voice. Will you save him, or will you save yourself? The choice loomed before her, one path leading to salvation, another into the mouth of horror. Before she could answer, the shadows lunged, and she was yanked from her feet, spinning as the light began to wane. Her scream echoed through the abyss. Would she fight, or would she let the shadows consume them both? As the laughter intensified, one thought hammered in her mind: what was the truth hiding in the darkness where illusions thrived? The shadows erupted around Sarah, surging like a tide ready to consume her whole. Her heart raced uncontrollably, beating a frantic rhythm that echoed in the silence. She gasped, the air thickening with an unnatural cold. It felt as if every breath was a struggle against the weight of the darkness, pushing against her chest, wrapping around her throat. She clawed at the ground, desperate to regain her footing, overwhelmed by the choking tendrils that tried to pull her deeper into the void. Jake! She screamed again, voice cracking with desperation. The shadows writhed, moving like smoke caught in a breeze. Each twisted formation seemed to play with her anguish, excited by her fear. The flicker of moonlight overhead seemed to diminish, casting a veil of dimness over the gruesome spectacle. Will you choose? Echoed the malicious voice, its tone like venom-coating words. The air vibrated with anticipation, filling Sarah's ears like an unending chant that urged her towards madness. Let him go. She shouted, but her words felt futile. Nothing shifted in the nightmare tableau. The shadows swirled voraciously, hungry for her surrender. Tendrils brushed against her skin, sticky and cold, leaving trails of icy dread in their wake. Panic clawed at her throat. Was Jake trapped forever in this sinister perversion of reality? The shadowy figures contorted and whispered, their voices a cacophony of despair. He chose us, Sarah. He chose freedom. Each phrase twisted in her mind, layered with anguish and delight. A new wave of terror flooded her, threatening to drown her hope. No, no. He would never. Mommy, the voice echoed again, softer this time, and just as before, it sent a shiver down her spine. But what she saw next froze her blood. As the dark clumped together, a grotesque mockery of her son took shape. Hollow eyes stared back at her, an insatiable grin widening across its face, the same small mouth she had kissed goodnight, but now twisted into something devoid of innocence. "Help me!" it cried, a sharp wail laced with ice. It was him. It wasn't him. The figure surged forward, drawing her deeper into the maw of the shadows. Sarah fought back, pushing herself against the weight of despair. Her arms flailed, seeking something to hold onto in the darkness. "Jake!" she cried out again, summoning all her strength. "I believe in you." The laughter that echoed through the shadows seemed to pause, mixed with hesitation. Lights danced in her vision, winking in and out like distant stars. It was fleeting. Was it hope or merely the flicker of illusion? The mockery halted, and a stillness fell over the darkened realm. "Believe?" the voice taunted, dripping with mockery. "Will that save him? Please?" she begged, racing thoughts mingling with despair. "I won't leave you." With newfound determination, she threw herself forward, breaking through the serpentine shadows. They twisted, pulling at her, cry of anguish piercing the silence, but she pushed through, heart racing, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Finally, she reached the outline of Jake, but the figure shimmered, flickered half in, half out of reality. "I'm here," she begged, her hands grasping at the darkness that held him hostage. For a moment, their eyes met, her pleading gaze locked in his sunken stares. "Mommy," but before she could close the distance, shadows erupted anew, a tempest of darkness enveloping around her. The world spun, disorienting her senses. Jake's form began to dissolve, melting into the laughter that echoed, leaving her alone with the clawing chaos. "No! You can't take him!" she shrieked, terror bubbling inside her. The shadows recoiled, and the laughter morphed into a low growl. "Then choose wisely, Sarah," she gasped, the realization stinging like ice. The choice wasn't just between saving her son or herself. It was a battle for her very soul, entwined with his in this dark place. As more laughter filled the void, something deep within her quaked. She had to confront the terror. The truth lingered just out of reach. "Where is the light?" she whispered into the thickening gloom. Desperate for an answer. Suddenly, she felt a surge of warmth, a flicker that shot through the darkness, igniting a tiny spark. But was it real, or merely another cruel trick? As shadows closed in, a question gnawed at her: could she pierce through the veil of deceit and find her son in the depths of despair? And what, if anything, would she be willing to sacrifice to uncover the truth? Sarah's heart thundered in her chest as the shadows tightened their grip, writhing like a living thing. She could almost hear the whispers of malevolent glee, taunting her with a sickening rhythm. Light shimmered through the darkness, a fragile beacon in the oppressive void. But was it real? She stumbled forward, breath hitching, grasping for that fleeting warmth. The laughter morphed into a low, growling melody, rising and falling like a ghostly tide. "To find him, you must become one of us," the voice crooned, slithering into her mind. "No!" she cried, almost choking on her determination. "I want to let you take me." But the shadows pulsed, and she could feel their danger crawling beneath her skin. They twisted and swirled, forever beckoning her to join their abyss. Jake's figure shimmered again. Was she imagining it? "Help me!" The anguish in that voice forced bile up her throat. It echoed all around her, a siren song that promised safety but whispered doom. With every fiber of her being, Sarah pressed on, her body shaking with dread. She had to believe in Jake. She had to believe they would emerge from this nightmare together. "Jake, hold on!" she screamed, the words ripping themselves from her lips. But the shadows around her seemed to thrum with amusement. Is there truly hope, Sarah? Or is that just a figment of your despair? Somewhere deep inside, a flicker of resolution ignited. The warmth she had sensed earlier surged again, not just a spark, but a flame fueled by a desperate mother's love. She forced her will against the oppressive darkness, clutching at the threads of Jake's fading essence, willing it to hold on. Suddenly, there was movement. The shadows recoiled, as if struck. No! The voice howled, now furious, the darkness pulsing with anger. You don't get to choose. But Sarah was past reason. She lunged towards Jake, collapsing into the abyss that threatened to swallow them both whole. The air crackled with oppressive energy, heavy with despair. As she drew closer, the grotesque reflection of her son began to distort again, shifting between anguish and mockery. Mommy? It was softer this time, resonating with a hint of what she loved. The pain paralyzed her, a dagger lodged in her heart. Yes. I'm here. Don't let go. She shrieked, inching forward, her limbs feeling leaden as she fought the shadows tightening around her. Fight. You're stronger than this. But as she grasped for him, icy fingers lashed out, tearing at her ankles, dragging her back. She screamed, clawing at the ground as she fought to return to Jake's phantom form. Just when she thought despair would claim her, she caught sight of a glowing figure, a silhouette stepping through the darkness. Who? She whispered, the question carried away by the wind. Sarah. The figure stepped closer, illuminating the quilt of writhing dark. As it became clearer, her heart dropped. It wasn't just a shine, it was a face she knew all too well, twisted in pain. It was her own. Join us, it echoed in the dark, a mirror of her own longing and loss. Embrace the shadows. Save your soul. The words echoed like a death knell, resonating fiercely. The shadows rumbled around her, swirling, eager for her surrender. In that moment, she glimpsed her mother's despair, her father's regret, all stitched together in the very fabric of the malice surrounding her. No. She couldn't succumb. Fight with me, Jake. We can break free. She shouted back into the churning blackness. I want to let them win. A pulse made the darkness ripple like water, and she felt a flicker of hope spark in the center of the maelstrom. Make the choice now. The laughter returned, mocking and rampaging, but beneath it, Sarah felt the weight of her heart batter against the shadows, the darkness quivering at the edges of her determination. As the entity before her flickered ominously, a question bled through the chaos. What if the fight within was just as terrifying as the darkness without? Would she face her own ghost to find her son? With a surge of raw resolve, she decided that she would. The stakes had never felt higher, and victory would demand everything. With her heart pounding in sync with the dancing shadows, Sarah felt the air thicken around her. Each breath was laden with dread. The distorted vision of her son flickered like a faulty light bulb, illuminating the path that lay ahead. Keep moving, she willed herself. She couldn't stop now. Jake! She shouted again, the name tearing from her lips like the last ember of hope. The laughter around her amplified, cruel and mocking, as if the darkness relished her desperation. It pulsed, surrounding her in a suffocating blanket. Why fight it, Sarah? The voice was smooth, like oil sliding down a throat. All you need to do is let go. Join us and feel the freedom of the abyss. The shadows surged forward, trying to envelop her. She could feel them slick and cold against her skin, but she refused to relent. The warmth of her love pulsed within, battling against their icy grip. Jake, just hold on, she repeated, her voice faltering as the shadows clawed at her resolve. An echo of her own voice rippled through the darkness, an unholy chorus harmonizing in twisted delight. It matched the desperate determination in her heart, a distorted reminder of everything she stood to lose. Just beyond the shadows, glimmers of light beckoned, fleeting glimpses of escape. Could she reach it? With each step, she felt her soul stretch, pulling away from the comfort of surrender. But the bewitching promise of security lingered, taunting her with memories of grief, of sloppy kisses before bedtime and warm embraces after nightmares. "Mommy," a childlike whimper drifted through the dark, pulling at her heart. It sounded just like Jake. "Please." Rage surged within her. This wasn't real. "No!" she screamed, lashing out at the shadows that wound tightly around her legs. "You will not take him from me." The weight of her determination exploded outward, a million shards of light pushed against the darkness. The shadows recoiled, chattering angrily, their whispers laced with venom. "Join us or suffer," they hissed, a sinister promise that festered with threat. The suffocating pressure intensified, but she grasped tighter to the threads of Jake. Every heartbeat pulsed with love, every breath filled with his memory. The ground trembled beneath her as the laughter morphed into agony. "Sarah, the choice will haunt you." But then there was another flicker, Jake's face finally breaking through the chaotic abyss. He looked terrified but also fierce. "Mom. I'm here." "Jake." In an instant, the shadows shrieked and splintered, their grip loosening just enough for her to lunge forward. She could feel her spirit tearing against the chains of despair binding her, the echoes of her past crashing against the walls built by fear. "Hold on to me," she screamed, reaching, stretching, desperate. The light began to grow brighter, a force that pushed against the clammy fingers of the darkness. She lunged toward her son, her fingers grasping at the spectral light surrounding him. But the shadows snarled, their anger burning far hotter than anticipated. "You dare defy us? You were chosen." The ground shook, and Sarah suddenly fell, a deep chasm opening beneath her. It was a void, more haunting than anything she had ever faced, a portal to despair. "No! Jake!" she screamed, clawing at the air, reaching for him as darkness surged up her arms, trying to claim her. A blinding flash of light erupted from her core, a heat that seared through the skin of the abyss. "You will not take him." Now, the shadows became a whirlpool of howling rage, thrashing around her in a frenzy of abortive claws. "Make the choice, Sarah," echoed the tortured voice once more. The swirling darkness began to scream in earnest. The tension peaked as light mingled with shadow, revealing a tension so palpable, it felt as if the entire universe held its breath, poised for her decision. Was it truly the end, or the beginning of something much darker? Would her resolve hold as the shadows threatened to consume all she had fought for? The darkness surged around Sarah, squeezing her spirit like a vice. She could feel her strength fading, each attempt to resist drawing on the last reserves of her energy. The chasm beneath her swallowed the sound of her cries, but not the terrifying laughter that echoed all around. It burrowed deep into her mind, clinging to her like a parasite. "Let him go, Sarah," the shadows crooned, their voices weaving together in a maddening symphony. "He belongs with us now." "Never." She spat defiantly, though part of her felt the chilling truth in their words. What if Jake was lost forever? What if her fight was for nothing? One flicker of doubt slipped into her heart, and the shadows wrapped tighter around her, squeezing until she gasped for breath. "Come play with us," came the enticing whisper, as another vision of her son emerged. This time he was not just terrified, he looked cruelly enthralled, grinning wickedly as he watched her struggle. "Mom! Help me!" But his voice twisted, mocking her now. "Or you could join me. It's so much fun here." "Stop!" Sarah screamed, the sound snapping through her own fear like a crack of lightning. She balled her fists, gathering the warmth of her memories, igniting them like a flame. But in doing so, she felt the shadows push back, as if her light was a weapon they feared. "Get away from him!" With renewed vigor, she clawed at the void beneath her, fighting the urge to surrender to its dark promises. "Jake, I'm coming. I'll find you." She tried to pull herself free, the light around her pulsing with every heartbeat, fierce and relentless. But the shadows roared, a storm manifesting where her courage dared to tread. Live in fear, Sarah, or join us in darkness. The choice is yours. They screeched, vibrating with an evil energy that rattled her bones. Just then, a vision flashed before her: Jake laughing, running in the backyard, sunlight catching his hair. It felt so real. The smell of freshly cut grass swirled in her memories, a cascade of warmth that was starkly opposed to the icy tendrils snaking around her legs. She had to hold on to that warmth. It was the life she had birthed, the only thing she needed to fight for. As the shadows whipped around her, seeking to drown out her resolve, Sarah pictured his face, his eyes bright with innocence and excitement. "I love you, Jake," she bellowed, rediscovering her voice, the fierce glow of a mother's love cutting through the darkness. The laughter fell silent, the shadows recoiled as if struck, their forms shriveling into the blackness. She could feel the ground shift, the chasm beneath her trembling as if it was alive. "No," they hissed. "You can't choose the light. It will betray you." The ground beneath Sarah twisted violently, threatening to throw her back into the abyss, but she shoved against it, resisting with all her might. "I won't give up," she screamed, and in that moment something shifted. Before she could comprehend, a blinding flash erupted around her, illuminating the chaotic darkness with blinding light. For one brief moment, she felt the shadows lift. But as she gasped for breath, the reality of the flicker caught her off guard. "Mom! Catch me!" Jake's voice rang through the light, now pleading but wholly resonant. She reached out, fingers brushing against the flickering air only to feel it burned with raw intensity. Then came the chilling realization: it was not her son beckoning, but another entity disguised in his form, playing on her agony. The shadows began to congeal again, coiling around her in primal rage. "You've unleashed our wrath, Sarah," they screeched, shrill and furious. In that split second, despair sank back into her heart, heavy and cruel. How could she keep fighting? How could she save herself and her son? The shadows rippled, unveiling glimpses of what waited in the void, but she had yet to see their true face. As the silhouettes loomed closer, the world around her began to tremble, lines fracturing uneven across the ground. "Sarah, watch as the one you love fades away." The dark voice twisted, gaining a sinister edge. Sarah stood breathless, caught between anguish and rage, the shadows whispering promises of her greatest nightmares. What awaited her in the depths had yet to be revealed. Would she dare descend once more into the darkness to uncover the truth? The ground below began to tremble more violently. The shadows bared their fangs, a feast waiting to be claimed. Sarah's heart raced as the shadows lunged at her, a cacophony of anger and despair swirling around her like a torrent. She could feel their cold fingers clawing at her skin, reaching for her very essence, trying to pull her deeper into their sinister embrace. Panic surged through her, but amidst that panic came the recognition of the warmth that flickered in her chest, the pure, unwavering love for Jake. "Don't give in," she called out to herself, clenching her fists. "He's counting on you." The echo of her own voice strengthened her resolve, reminding her that she was not just fighting for her son but for herself, her spirit, her identity. The dark figures froze momentarily, taken aback by her sudden defiance. "He is lost, Sarah," one of the voices hissed, tainted with malice. "The shadows have claimed him, he belongs to us now." "Never!" she shouted, the heat of anger igniting a fierce determination. "Jake is my son. He is worth fighting for." With a primal scream, she surged forward, the flickering light inside her blazing brighter than before. The shadows writhed around her, recoiling as she advanced, unable to withstand the force of her maternal love. "Join us, Sarah!" they screamed, their contribution to the chorus fraying at the edges. "It's easier to let go, to surrender to the darkness, no," she shouted back, feeling the energy crackle in the air. "I refuse to let you win." Fueled by her desperation, she pushed against the tide, the flickering images of her son's laughter pushing through the demons that encircled her. "Jake!" she called, eyes wide for any sign of her child. "I'm coming for you." Suddenly, beneath the chaos, she spotted a faint illumination, a cry for help brightly shining through the darkness. With every ounce of strength, Sarah tore herself from the grasp of the shadows, lunging towards the glow that flickered rhythmically. "Mommy! Help!" The voice, sweet yet soaked with fear, was unmistakably Jake's. Her heart leaped, as if the very sound had woven a thread through the darkness that connected her back to him. She could almost feel him within reach if only she could get to the light. The shadows screeched in protest, slashing at her as she advanced, but their anger only fueled her strength. "I will not let you take him," she bellowed, her hands thrusting forward to break the barrier that separated them. The warmth of her love pulsed through her, a brilliant light that illuminated the charred expanse around her. "Fool!" The shadows howled. "You think you can fight the darkness? You'll be consumed." The malicious laughter surged, but Sarah didn't blink. She could see Jake now, the light around him pulsing in rhythm with her heart. "Hold on, Jake!" she cried, stretching her hands towards him. "I'm coming." In that moment, time suspended, the shadows shifted in panic, no longer interested in their mockery. Instead, they lashed out at her with ferocity, but Sarah's will only grew stronger, fueled by her resolve to save her son at any cost. She forged ahead, the bond between mother and son flaring bright as she neared the shimmering barrier. "Mom!" Jake's cry pushed her forward one last time. She could feel the shadows tremble and shake in desperate fear, tightening their grip on their prey. With a desperate roar, Sarah broke through the darkness, her hands reaching out to grasp his. The moment their skin met, a blinding light exploded in a kaleidoscope of color that shattered the shadows like glass. The darkness screamed, howling in an anguished farewell, dissipating into the ether. They were together, reunited, and the oppressive weight of despair lifted like fog burnt off by sunlight. "I found you!" Sarah gasped, heart racing as she pulled Jake close, wrapping her arms around him with such ferocity he could barely breathe. "Mom!" He laughed, his eyes sparkling with relief, the innocence returning as the shadows melted away entirely. "I was so scared." "I know, sweetheart," Sarah whispered back, tears streaming down her face. "But I promise, we're home now." As they stepped into the light, the sun began to rise, spilling golden warmth across the landscape where the night had once ruled. The path before them uncoiled, revealing a serene world drenched in dawn's tender light. The twisted memories and shadows faded like echoes in the morning air. Together, they walked into a new dawn, hearts thundering but firmly held in the assurance of love and survival. Just before they reached the horizon, Sarah glanced back one last time. The darkness lay behind them, still and lifeless, but a sense of warmth enveloped her, a reminder that she had faced the horrors and emerged whole. "Let us go home, Jake," she said, her heart swelling with love. The shadows were behind them, now a part of the past, but never to define the future. If you enjoyed this thrilling conclusion, you need to subscribe now and hit that notification bell to ensure you never miss an exclusive story from us. Smash that like button now to show your love and support. Your engagement boosts this channel, and it truly makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah's journey and the dark forces she confronted. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this epic conclusion. Let us grow our community together and keep uncovering stories that thrill and chill us.